All right, how's everyone doing? I'm Rich Celenza. Thanks for checking out my channel. So what I want to get into today is ego. And I think a lot of times too much ego can be destructive when working out. And listen, I get it regarding ego. A lot of times ego, no matter what anyone says, drives you to become who you want to become. It really does. And I know this because I firsthand was one of these people, and I was obsessed a little bit with not only ego, but how people perceived me. Especially when it came to my physical identity, or when it came to lifting heavy weights or working out. And that would be regarding any type of physical activity. I wanted to excel. I wanted to be better than everybody. I wanted to become a captain. I wanted to just really take things to the next level. But what I realized after a certain amount of time was, as much as my ego was helping me, right, and giving me the desire to kind of move forward and be better and better and better, it also was starting to destroy me. Because what I think happened with me was, especially with weightlifting, so I wanted to keep lifting heavier weights. I kept wanting to get my body bigger and bigger. And before you know it, what started off very healthy ended up becoming very unhealthy, because I started to lift a lot of heavy weights. I started to go through some injuries, and regardless, even if I got injured, I would fight through them again and re-injure something else. I was also taking a major toll over the years on my tendons and joints. I've discussed this many times on my podcast and on my YouTube channel, that I don't think a lot of people that lifted heavy weights or play sports for a long period of time really discuss, and that's how they feel later in life. And where sometimes, like I just mentioned, sometimes we start off one place, which could be living a very healthy lifestyle or doing something for one reason, and before you know it, the ego is getting bigger and bigger. Before you know it, you're becoming more and more competitive. Now, again, if you're doing this for high school sports, college, collegiate, to get a scholarship, or professional sports, I get it. That's a whole different thing. But for the average Joe out there, a lot of times, our ego sometimes definitely could get the best of us. That could go for, I don't care if you're doing jiu-jitsu, I don't care if you're playing a local pickup basketball game, or whatever the case may be. Put a check on the ego a little bit, all right? Also, regarding an ego, a lot of times with a big ego comes a bad attitude. And I personally think, at least me, a lot of times it gives you a bad attitude. And also, sometimes having a big ego can actually make you look insecure instead of secure. Especially like if somebody comes to the gym in the old days and they were bigger than me, let's say. I was actually, I'm not saying intimidated, but I was aggravated that somebody was bigger. But that would actually help me drive to become bigger. Internally, I wouldn't let them know it, and same with somebody stronger than me. And I'm here to tell you, there's always going to be somebody out there bigger than you, stronger than you, faster than you. That doesn't mean that you can't try to be faster, bigger, stronger, whatever the case may be. But again, you have to be very aware regarding your ego that you do not set yourself up physically to damage yourself doing it. Because I think a lot of people do this, and this is where a lot of injuries come into play. Even jokingly, if you watch or you listen to other previous bodybuilders or previous athletes, a lot of times their ego drove them to have an incident. It could be, whatever it could be. It may not even be in a gym. It may not even be regarding fitness. It could be outside. Again, ego, you could get in a fight with somebody because you have a bad attitude again. Or your ego could be getting a certain type of car and driving too fast, trying to impress others. All these type of things come into play. So please, be aware of that. Become self-aware. And the reason I'm doing a video on this is because I fought through that for many, many years. And I realized, is my ego, again, helping me or hurting me? And I think after time, I realized instead of also, I always just wanted to be kind of, not a badass, but somebody you didn't want to mess around with, right? But before you know it, you have a certain identity, which is fine. That's the identity I wanted. But then you get to the point where you start taking it too far. And further and further, and before you know it, like I was saying earlier, you're kind of getting in fights, telling people off, and then the ego, if somebody says something you the wrong way, all these different types of things were not beneficial to me. At the end of the day, I used to say, what did I really accomplish by having this ego to this level? Now again, I'm not dismissing having, an ego and making you become drive you to become better. But sometimes, like I said, it just sometimes can be more damaging than it is helpful, is what I really should say. So keep an eye on that. And I always said it's a lot better later in life, I realized, to help others, right, than have an ego than to want to destroy.